Members' business. Notice number 1, motion relating to diabetes.
The member for Werriwa.
I move the motion relating to diabetes in the term with which it appears on the notice paper. On November 14 has been recognised as World Diabetes Day since 2007 after a UN resolution. The resolution was passed by consensus and supported heavily by Australia. It made clear that member states should develop policies for prevention, treatment and care of diabetes in line with the sustainable development of healthcare systems. Within my electorate of Werriwa, there are a significant number of people affected by both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle-related disease and affects more Australians than type 1 diabetes. But for type 1 diabetics, it is a lifelong disease and it is not caused by anything that person or their families have done, and it has significant ongoing costs to the healthcare system. The Baker Institute in Melbourne estimates the cost per patient with type 1 diabetes per year to our healthcare system at $3,468. However, complications arising as a result of poor blood sugar control can cause blindness, renal failure, amputations, peripheral nerve damage, heart attacks and strokes. Finger prick tests only provide a snapshot of that exact moment. There is no insight to where blood sugars are going or where they've come from. That means making decisions is extremely difficult for people who finger prick, which is the vast majority of people in Australia with type 1 diabetes, and then can obviously lead to complications because they don't get a proper understanding of where they are at any moment in time. The Baker Institute further estimates that half of all Australians with diabetes have poor blood sugar control. This significantly increases the likelihood they will suffer any number of debilitating and costly complications. And if complications are involved, this causes the cost per patient per year to come up to $6,698. How can we best avoid this impending financial, health and social disaster? It's as simple as expanding the National Diabetes Services Scheme to allow all people with type 1 diabetes accessing to the life-changing technology that is constant glucose monitoring or flash glucose monitoring. The government already subsidises access for people under 18, but as soon as you turn 18, you have no support from the government to continue using this life-saving and life-changing technology. Diabetes Australia says that outcomes from the 50,000 FGM users in Europe shows improved overall diabetes control, improved time in the optimal glucose range, and a reduction in incidence of hypo or hyperglycemia. Diabetes Australia then says these outcomes reduce the long-term risk of debilitating and expensive diabetes-related complications. 32 other countries around the world provide subsidised access to FGM for all people with type 1 diabetes. They don't discriminate affordable access purely on patient age, but because it's the right thing to do for the budget, the health, the social outcomes, themselves and their families. And as the Health Minister knows, he promised to list FGM on the National Diabetes Services Scheme for people with type 1 diabetes on the 1st of March. When he made the promise, he said that both FGM and CGM will bring peace of mind to Australians with type 1 diabetes and improve their quality of life now and into the future. Yet people with type 1 diabetes are still waiting for that to be done. Despite the promise and despite the peak diabetes body in Australia calling for this funding to go on the NDSS, why are people with over 18 with type 1 diabetes receiving no support from the government to access technology which will save the government and the health system money? The numbers are clear. This is not just an issue for equity for people who suffer a lifelong disease. It's about caring for Australians who have to manage their condition every hour of every day. I want to pay tribute to every single person in Australia with type 1 diabetes, their families and friends, to the parents who look after their small children. You are our champion. I know that at any age complications can strike, and I know the thousands of extra decisions you have to make every single day to manage diabetes that would be so much helped with this technology. So it is time for the government to make good on its promise and fund the technology like the 32 other countries have already done. Supporting people with chronic lifelong diseases should be based on their diagnosis, not their age as a deciding factor.